Well, hello everyone, and welcome to just another conversation for People Work. But we're talking today with Bert, who I actually now consider my dear friend. He's been involved in my life from a business perspective. That's how we met.
Yep.
For 5 years now. 5 years. People Work is about to turn 5 years. 5 years. And he still didn't call me crazy then. I don't know why, but he didn't call me crazy then. Maybe calls me crazy now. But we're going to talk to
entertaining.
Okay, I'll take that. I will definitely take that. Entertaining is a much more preferred word. So you are coming to have a chat with me because you have a brilliant financial mind, and you help your clients every day navigate the future through numbers.
Right.
And in the business world where we just got through the past, which was incredibly trepidatious, no one wanted to move, and now everyone is coming at us with a crystal ball saying the future is just bleak and gloomy and no real sunshine is around the horizon.
I don't know about that.
Okay, well then we can talk about that, everyone's perspective about what the future holds. But one of the things I want to start our conversation with, and then I hope that we have a conversation that educates
Everyone,
really, yeah, but educates our employees, the talent, about how the working world works through numbers, and as just a benefit, how companies are going to adapt as business people. And ironically, I think our conversation will point out that we all kind of have to evaluate things on the same, in a similar way. We just use different maybe data points to come to the same conclusion. So my first question to you is cost-benefit analysis. You know, that's an odd...
I was already teasing you, that's a very broad topic, so let's open to narrow it down,
okay.
But we can go all over that.
Okay, well, so cost-benefit analysis, when one of your clients comes to you and says, how do I know what I'm doing is worth doing anymore?
Because they're likely your least profitable. Now we'll cut out the 5 once we actually determine it, but we don't need to go look at all 100 because your pain points indicates where you have cost or profit problems. Whether it's on a product, whether it's on a customer, whether it's on a division, whether it's on an employee. The same analogy really holds true, and it really helps you to narrow it down and do less work to get to a better decision. Okay. Does that make sense?
Well, what I heard, if I'm going to translate, what I heard is almost like the 80-20 rule.
There's a lot of that in.
Okay, so elaborate a little bit more about what, and let me give you a scenario for what People Work has to deal with, right?
Okay.
We deal with people. I still think your 50 years in the industry entitle you to a $400,000 a year salary. I deal with perception, and then I also have to deal with what the market can bear. So I always have a question to our talent. What's your cost-benefit analysis? What would you need to make in order to check off all of these boxes about your purpose, the environment, your managers, the company?
In that regard, especially when you're dealing with people, I like to let's start with the end in mind. Let's do a little Stephen Covey here. Okay. So as a person enters a company,
by the way. Okay.
As a person enters a company, or as a company looks to engage people, it's like, what are we trying to achieve 2 or 3 years from now? So let's go back to maybe the person who's fresh out of college going to get a job, and they hear that I should be getting paid 70, 80, 90, whatever they're going to be paid. It's like, perhaps, I mean, if you're really talented, perhaps that's a part of it. But when you look at these opportunities, look at what the opportunity is going to create for you. Because especially when you're developing that portfolio or toolbox of tools, there's going to be some really valuable tools that different companies can give to you. And those tools are not created equally. So it makes all pay not created equally. Especially, and I think that metaphor really holds true to about 35. And that may sound wrong to somebody as young as you, but not to me. But accumulating really great tools, because you want to see somebody's income and wealth spike. It's primarily 35 and afterwards. Okay. Because they have great tools that they can deploy in unique ways. Same thing a little bit for a baby boomer. I have tons of street cred or whatever, and I want to use all that. And for me, that analogy twists a little bit. Because I already have all the tools in my toolbox that I'm probably going to have. I'm going to sharpen them. Mm-hmm. But boy, I should be able to provide value instantly. If those tools are working well, I should know exactly what bolt to turn, what screw to move, and everything else. And so my ability to earn 400 has everything with my ability to impact immediately.
I want to circle back to something else you mentioned earlier, which was the 3-year horizon, because that goes back to that comment where I've heard that the sky is falling. You have a perception that it might not be falling so bad. So I definitely want to go back to that. But a cost benefit analysis on every company's offer to you is more than $1 in a salary.
Absolutely.
And that was, and I agree with you, your first 10 years, you've got to weigh in totality. And then, after that, I totally see that and agree with that, that if you think that you can hit the ground running, man, you better hit it running hard. If you're going to come to an organization with that kind of dollar associated to your time and your value, you definitely want to demonstrate that sooner. So, realistically for our younger adults, obviously, think of things in its totality. And for our older talent that come to us and you're trying to figure out what's next, think about how you get paid and the jobs you get matched with in terms of what you can provide instant value for, so that your ticket price, so to speak, goes up. So actually there's 2 things that I want to talk about. So I hope that you remind me or don't forget as well.
I got a couple things I'm tracking with, but that's okay. I like the fluidity of the conversation.
Okay, so let's go back to the first one, which was 2 to 3 year horizon, the cost benefit analysis. So small businesses, commercial sized businesses, those are the customers that come to us for hiring. Those are typically your customers.
Absolutely.
We have some outliers that are enterprise companies, and they have different conversations, and a 3-year horizon is very different for an enterprise than a growing commercial or a small company. So how do I know, as a business in the middle of a lot of unknown, that it's still worth to push through?
Yes. But in every fluid situation, in every situation of change, there is always opportunities. Always opportunities. Whether that's an employment opportunity or a business opportunity. So if I look at my own industry or your own industry, lots of changes. Mm-hmm. But what am I doing for it? So like for my clients, I'll recommend, we think the sky may be falling. How strong is your balance sheet? Right? Because if you want to go into hyper growth, the best time to do that is coming out of a recession. But that means you have to be prepared going into a recession. Mm-hmm. So when people say, oh, we're going into hard times, it's like, this could be great. This could be outstanding.
I hope you remember his smiley face 3 or 4 years from now.
and you're not outside my house trying to burn stuff down.
You told me to be happy about this. I can just see the comeback.
But it depends on what you focus on, mm-hmm. right? So if you look back and goes, this is going to be a
perception
shifting
is everything sometimes, yes.
Focus, I think, is everything.
Oh, okay. Fair.
I think focus
I like
is
that.
everything, yeah. So if you determine what you want to focus on, it helps to narrow the field. And yeah, this is probably a good time to be storing acorns, mm-hmm. Because you'll eat well when everybody else is scrambling around, running around what tree has acorns. You'll be fine. And then you can go out, and the greatest thing about having uncertainty or the sky's falling is the fact that when it stops falling, everything's cheap. Everything's cheap. Mm-hmm. Your competitors are cheap. Assets are cheap. Equipments are cheap. And sometimes your employees are cheap. Mm-hmm. Not in absolute cheapness.
Yeah.
But in the ability to attract people who are willing to transition.
Yeah.
Right? Because let me tell you, you ever want to talk to somebody about is your company doing okay or not? Go ask the salesperson. Mm-hmm. They know so fast, it's unreal. They can't get their products delivered. They can't get things executed, whatever. Oh, these staff are always changing. So ask them first, and they'll tell you. And so if you want a great salesperson, be prepared when other lug nuts become wobbly, and go talk to them.
Or find the way to make that bridge to get some information. And of course, if you're a sales professional listening, you kind of hold a lot of information.
They really do.
Which can be a whole different conversation. So just to make this relatable for me, I always find it ironic that I can be in one room where there's a bunch of decision makers and they are making business decisions for an entity. Then I go to a talent conversation where they're just trying to figure out how to navigate the working world. The conversations are really the same in the sense of I have expenses, I am only making so much in income, I need to understand how I'm going to preserve myself through these rough times.
Yep.
And I need to think about how I'm going to come out of it when the sun is a little bit shinier. And that changes by person. It's not just the macro circumstances that we're in. But sometimes I think it's a little unfair that companies have a cost benefit analysis and employees have their own personal cost benefit analysis they have to do and their own financial planning that they have to do. But really the activities are the same. So where do those two objectives meet, or do they ever meet? Where the employees' financial health and the company's financial health can maybe not ever be totally in harmony, but maybe be better understood, that they have mutual objective.
Truly.
Yeah.
I'm not looking for the cheapest CFOs in the marketplace. I'm looking for the brightest. Because if I find the brightest, they can get engaged all over the place.
Yeah.
If I find the Klingons who are struggling to connect anywhere, my business is going to get killed and their business is going to get killed. So I should say that they should both be winning together. And that sounds like I just suddenly changed my career into HR, and I didn't. But it's true.
That's okay, because there are plenty of people in HR. Don't do that. Stay in your awesome space. Be the numbers.
No, nobody wants to stress the old dude in HR. That's for sure. But when you look at this whole engagement model, if I was a young person and I'm in a company and I know the company is going to go through some transitions, part of what I did not like in what you said is company has costs. Well, they have resources. I don't like to say that they have costs, although it's true that I think for the average company, 38 to 42% of their total cost structure is people. And that includes like a manufacturer that has plants and equipment and all this other stuff. So yeah, it's a critical part of your resource. It's not a critical part of your cost. And it's a very productive resource when it's viewed as such. So along those lines, the businesses that are looking at it, I got to cut 10%. No, I need to harvest 10%. So the people that are going to be here, my critical few, how much more can they produce? How do I incentivize them to produce more? How do I incentivize them to let go of their problems and embrace the opportunities? Because if you get your best people to embrace their opportunities and not their problems, life changes radically. Now on the flip side of the fence, if I'm the employee and I'm sitting over there, golly, it's like on a snow day, they say non-essential people need not show up. Well, holy smokes, I'm going into work.
What a message.
I don't want anybody thinking I'm non-essential.
Yeah.
But if your company's going into like a crisis point or a pivot point, and that can be in health, good times or bad, it's like, how am I adding unique value? Where can I drive more value, more profits, more business, more whatever into the company, more productivity, more leverage that other people aren't thinking about?
Yeah.
And you take that to your boss with that toolkit of used and sharpening tools, you are going to become one of the critical few. And you could probably, if you have a smart employer that's not thinking about cost but thinking about resources, you could connect the dots between, I'm going to enable a different performance. I would like to share in some of that enablement. And so you get into this deal of, can I create my own future if I pivot about how effectively I'm engaged in the company?
I've been very fortunate to lead some of the biggest companies in their people strategies and then work in operations and some other commercial sized businesses. And I can tell you distinctly that you know whether or not the executive leadership has a point of view that numbers and enabling people to perform, to achieve those numbers is very different than treating numbers as factual, raw, dry data points that have no correlation to human behavior.
Data points from the finance people, yeah.
Yes, exactly. And I can see from a people perspective why the majority of employees or people when they get their first job, they feel those decisions in how they deliver their work because of what you just said. If I have a compensation plan that is provoking performance and encouraging and rewarding, I wouldn't dare to say loyalty these days, but a sense of passion or interest for my job, and I'm not talking about the purpose conversation. I'm talking about if you're at a manufacturing plant and all you're doing is cutting chicken heads off all day long, but you have, I know that was such a visual there, but
to better understand your history.
but you can do that and know that if I am doing this to achieve a different outcome for my job because that's how my company treats the structure around me, then awesome. And even when it comes down to, going back to that conversation around if you're younger, you have this total value proposition that you're looking at versus if you're younger and you're looking at maybe your raw income and your how much cash contribution you get versus all the other bells and whistles. Like there's so many things that go into that. But if you have a total rewards package, and for young adults that just means all the other incentives, bells, whistles, perks that companies give you when you work for them, that covers all of those boxes, you see it in the plan. You see the difference in whether or not your financial leaders and your executives and your operators are enabling a culture and using the numbers to prove that they have enabled versus using them as an enabler. Is that right? Sorry.
I'll say a roadblock.
A roadblock, okay.
So the real thing is are you educating people about how their decisions and behaviors change the numbers? Or are you just saying you're a part of the number? That's a totally different conversation. If I just say you're a part of the number and I have to change the number, then that means I have to change you. But if I say that you are a part of creating the numbers and that your actions and behaviors can create different numbers, wow, that educational process is very different. We had, this is a quick example, we had this one client and they do IT implementations. And they were really performing at the lower quartile of their industry. And they were like at 3% profitability, they should have been at 12 or 15. Okay. So horrible as far as I'm concerned. And so what we're doing with everybody is like, hey, programmers, implementers, how many of those are you? No, there's 50 of us. It's like, I want to see a show of hands on a Zoom call. How many of y'all each week step over, 2 hours of work that if you really took the time, it could be billable, but he just says, it's only 2 hours, we'll just do it. All of them raise their hand.
Oh, yeah.
Says, does that happen often? Yeah, pretty often. Does it happen every week? Oh, yeah, every week. 50 people times 2 hours times 52 weeks at a bill rate of $200 an hour.
That adds up quickly.
It quadrupled their profitability.
Wow.
So when you understand it's just a little thing, maybe I should raise my hand about this. So one last thing, and then I'll let you interrupt me.
No.
Because I feel like I'm on a roll. I gotta
keep going.
So whenever I get into a company, who do you think I really want to talk to in the company?
Well, usually the first point of contact, because it's not typically the leadership.
All right, let's say that I'm going in. Of course, I'm a CFO, so I'm probably going to be in the boardroom talking to the boardroom. I hear about lots of problems. Who do you think I want to talk to thereafter?
I don't know. You don't know the riddle.
The luck. Okay, I have got to learn to speak more directly.
I was trying to follow the riddle. I'm also bad at Sudoku, for the record. And crossword puzzles are not my thing.
Okay. I want to go talk to the line employees.
Okay, yeah.
There is nobody that knows what's broken in a company better than the line employees.
Than the people who are
right?
Yes.
What they're not being challenged on is what's the ramifications of the brokenness, right? So they know it's broken. They may not understand the ripple effects of what that does to a company. They may not understand that the solution is only 2 cubes away, but I'm not talking to 2 cubes away. So you go talk to the line employees, things start to change. So with the younger folks, they're probably not in the boardroom. And if they just start looking at their problems of this doesn't work, right? And go, how could it work? And if it worked differently, what would be the impact? Could somebody help me understand what the ripple effect of this decision might be? And they're probably on the verge of goal. So that's taking those ideas, and especially if the management team is vested and we want you to understand how your behaviors change the numbers, not that you're a part of the numbers, but you change the numbers. That's a great environment. So the ROI for that employee, if you're in that environment where your creative juices can be enabled to create new opportunities and you can be participating in those new opportunities, that's where loyalty comes from. Because I'm given the opportunity to do something different, I'm given the opportunity to create something different, and I'm given the opportunity to participate in what I just created. That is gold.
Yeah. How much of this style of leadership in business, meaning the perspective of using numbers as a demonstration of what you've enabled versus just a data point that you need to react to? As a financial person, how much of that has to do with, if these employees are saying that they didn't build those hours, the idea of capitalism versus socialism? Because the younger generation has a hard idea, a hard concept that to deal with the idea of profit. I mean, we've had a lot of conversations with our young adults who are entering the working world, and I just want to do work that's purposeful. Well, how are you going to pay your bills? There's nothing wrong with earning revenue. There's nothing wrong with the word profit, but somehow this generation entering the workforce, they think profit is equally associated to bad and not good and evil. So I don't necessarily mean socialist versus capitalist. I'm just saying that there is something in our brains if we're an employee, but we've been enabled to be empowered to do all of the right things, and we know we're trying to do things to take care of the customers, but we really are hurting ourselves in the long run. We're hurting our financial health, which is a big part of everyone's life, financial health. Unless you're the government and you have a money printing machine and no one cares. But other
clearly
than that,
we care.
Well, we care since we pay for that money making machine through our taxes. But anyways, so I don't know if you have a point of view on how our psyche kind of
Right, and I'm not going to do Gordon Gekko on you and say that greed is good.
Okay,
Go quite
don't be that
bad.
extreme. Okay.
Yeah. The profits aren't bad.
No, I mean, we need them to live.
Yeah. So even in my business, it's a finance business, but our number one deal is we're going to go serve. We're going to go serve well. Even in our events, it's like I'm having events to serve entrepreneurs to make sure that they know more, and I'm serving market partners to make sure that they can connect more. So I have two clients, let's say, hypothetical clients. One we do really well at, and we get great fees and everything else. The other one's struggling. But if my purpose is to go and serve, I need to serve both, right? Because the person who's struggling, their net worth is at risk. So by me having profitable clients, it gives me the flexibility to go serve those who need it more that just can't afford it right now. So profits are not bad. The other thing about profits is that I'll say, if you were to go out into the marketplace and do a survey of companies that are rated with just outstanding cultures, I will almost guarantee that there's an extraordinarily high correlation between high sense of great purpose and culture and high margins.
I have found that to be true.
Right?
I agree.
Here's why. So it's not just financial hyperbole. There's actually cause and effect.
You're not zenning in one hand and
no.
balancing on the other.
No,
I didn't bring my little finger symbols, so none of that.
Okay.
but let's say that I'm in a company that has very modest profits.
Mm-hmm.
What that also means is I'm in a company that can afford very few mistakes.
Okay.
And with very few mistakes comes more discipline, more structure, more supervision. We can't afford to make mistakes, so I'm going to be looking at everything you do. So low profits actually is the antithesis of what creates good culture, because it makes sure that we're all scrambling around. In fact, if I look at a company and they don't have enough capital structure, they haven't built up enough reserves, on in their capital structure because of profitability, as soon as they hit a stub toe or a speed bump, all the plates crash. There is chaos all over the place because they have to do whatever it takes to try and connect the dots.
The survival.
Right. Everything scrambles. So here's a concept that I use with companies a lot. We've all heard about EBITDA, right? Rightly or wrongly. But there's a concept that I'll say, what are your purposeful profits? And people look at me like I have 4 heads. Like, what do you mean by that? It's like, so one of my favorite, if you know John Wesley, he created Methodism and also Islam. So he had a really interesting statement. It's like, make all you can, because it's a reflection of the gifts that you've been given. Save all you can, because the resources created by those gifts, you're meant to be a good steward of.
Okay.
And then give all you can to enable the gifts of others.
I love that.
Right?
I love that. So say those 3 again.
So, profitability, make all you can, because it's a reflection of the gifts that you have been given.
Okay.
Save all you can is you're meant to be a steward of those gifts, of the resources that those gifts create, right? And then lastly, give all you can so you can enable the gifts of others.
So I was not expecting our conversation today to be as psychological in some ways as it was. And I was really thinking that having a conversation around how to really plan for the future costs of our world, what is the implications of what's happening on the bigger scale. I thought we were really going to hash out some good numbers, but that's...
Oh gosh, I forgot my spreadsheet.
Yeah, don't do that. No, I'm so glad we didn't even get to do that. So the purpose of our conversation today was not just to introduce everyone to Bert and all the awesome things that he does through New Life CFO Services, and for the wonderful things that he does for clients that 5 years ago that he did for me when we were a startup, all the way to his established customers. But it was also to give you, who could be making decisions, you could be a parent, you could be a business owner, you could just be a young adult that's coming to us because very randomly you came on how to survive the working world or what's going on with the job market. The point is a perspective that businesses who are responsible and good stewards of their employees, their financial health, their future, they are looking 3 to 5 years down the road. And the way that they approach what they do next has a lot more to do with perspective and planning.
Absolutely.
Than it does with 1 + 1 = 2 all the time. And then for individuals who are out in the market that are scared about what's next, their job security, their income planning, it's all the same conversation. We all just need to be good stewards of our income, our earning potential, balance out the risks, think through what we're going to do when the sun shines again, because it does shine again. So yeah, it's really just a matter of getting a perspective. So I hope we provided that to you today. But Bert, is there anything else that you want to talk about?
I really just appreciate the time to sit down and chat. I'm sorry we went so far off topic. It explains why you're giving these guys all this caffeine before we start talking. It's like, it's the finance guy. You're going to need this.
Well, the good news is they didn't cut us. So they didn't cut us, so we weren't that boring, I guess. Well, Bert, thank you so much for coming.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you guys for watching.